Rye is a small town and civil parish in the East Sussex, England, 2 miles from the sea at the confluence of 3 rivers, the Rother, the Tillingham and the Brede. In medieval times, as an important member of the Cinque Ports confederation, it was at the head of an embayment of the English Channel and almost entirely surrounded by the sea. Rye was often the first port of call for an intruder sailing across the northwest Europe. This was when it was fully functioning harbour, before it was separated from the sea by marsh. In recognition of Rye's role in defence on the south coast, the town was made a Cinque Port in 1336. The town became one of the group of ports on the south coast which received privileges, including exemption from the tax in return for maintaining ships for defence, a scheme originally introduced by Edward the Confessor in the 11th century. The land gate was built in 1329 on the orders of Edward III to strengthen the town's defences. It is the only remaining one of the town's main 3 gates built in the early 14th century. During the high tide, the sea surrounded the 3 sides of Rye and the only access to the town was through this fortified gate. St. Anthony of Padua Church is a Roman Catholic parish church that was constructed from 1927 to 1929 and replaced a church built in 1900. It is a Grade 2 listed building. The Lamb House is a Grade 2 listed house built in 1722 by James Lamb, a wealthy wine merchant and local politician. It has been the home of many writers, including Henry James from 1897 to 1914 and later E.F. Benson. In the winter of 1726, King George I took refuge here after his ship was washed ashore at nearby Camber Sands. Mrs. Lamb gave birth to a baby boy during that night. The child was named George and the king consented to be the boy's godfather. The Mermaid Street in Rye has been voted as one of the most Instagrammable streets in the UK. And it's no wonder, as this delightful historic street has a quintessentially English charm and a fairy tale quality to it. The street is also steeped in a long and fascinating history. The Mermaid Inn has served as an inn since the 12th century. At this time, the owners brewed their own ale and charged 1 penny for a night's lodging. Turbulent times have been seen by this inn, such as a bout with smugglers in the 18th century. The notorious Hawkhurst gang used the Mermaid Inn as one of their bases of operation. The current Grade II listed building dates from 1420 and underwent a Tudor makeover in the 16th century. Medieval era sailors also favoured this inn due to its proximity to the Rye harbour. Rye still retains its historic charm with rich history and colour, with cobbled streets filled with quirky houses, shops, medieval inns and cafes. The Gibbet Mill is a Grade II listed cosmetically reconstructed smoke mill at Rye. The mill was working by wind until 1912 and was used as a bakery until 13 June 1930 when it was burnt down. The new mill was erected in 1932. Today it serves as bed and breakfast accommodation. Smuggling began in the Middle Ages when wool, the backbone of medieval English economy, was smuggled out to continental Europe. Rye was a smuggler's town where magistrates and revenue men struggled to keep things under control. The smugglers were known as owlers due to the owl-like noises they used to communicate at night. One of the most beloved poems by Rudyard Kipling is A Smuggler's Song. It is a romanticized story of a smuggler who warns the children he is speaking to in the poem to pay no mind to the smuggling trade. 520 ponies trotting through the dark, brandy for the parson, Becky for the clerk. Them that ask no questions, isn't told a lie, watch the wall my darling, while the gentlemen go by. Rye Castle, also known as the Viper's Tower, was built in the 13th and 14th centuries. It is a Grade I listed building and has been scheduled as an ancient monument. The building has served Rye for more than 600 years. It has been a castle defending the town, a home, a courthouse, a prison, and a mortuary. The museum first opened in the tower in 1954. The town court, made here in the 1420s, and in the 1430s it was a family home. Prisoners were held in the tower from 1490s, and the castle continued to be Rye's prison until the 1890s. The castle is named after John de Ypres, who lived here in the 1430s. It was previously known simply as the castle at Rye. In the late 1300s, it was also referred to as Badding's Tower after another important local family.
In 1837, the Women's Tower was built adjoining to the Vipers Tower, which housed 4 cells for holding female prisoners. Between the Women's Tower and Vipers Tower was a prisoners' exercise yard, which has now been converted into a recreation of a medieval garden. In the 1300s and 1400s, during the Hundred Years' War with France, the castle played an important part in the defense of Rye. By the end of 1400s, cannon were a common weapon in the medieval warfare. Rye Castle acquired its first cannon to defend the harbour and the town in 1457. The terrace, now known as the Gun Garden, was specially built to create a firing platform for cannon. Crossbows and longbows continued to be used alongside cannon and were fired from the battlements. The St. Mary's Church is the Anglican parish church of the civil parish of Rye. Since 1951, it is a Grade 1 listed building because of its architectural and historical interest. This historic 1736 brick water tower, standing in the northeast corner of the churchyard, is an ancient cistern or water tank. It is a Grade 2 listed building. In 1742, the churchyard was the site of a crime. The butcher John Brede accidentally murdered Alan Greville. Instead of the mayor he really intended to kill. John Brede was hanged and gibbeted. His skull, which is the only remains of him, was brought to the town hall and remains there. Both are still told to haunt the churchyard. For a small town, this historic church is quite large, indicating the town's importance as a port in the Middle Ages. You can climb the tower for £4. From the ground, it may not look that high, but it is deceptive. It's well worth it as the views of the rooftops and countryside from the top are fantastic. The steps up are very steep with low ceilings and in places goes through a narrow passageway, so it won't be suitable for all. On the way up, you come across this huge set of church bells.